Welcome to the What's Important Now broadcast. In America today, we are witnessing a cultural shift. This is the show devoted to the battle for the soul of our country. Join our host, Tom Sears, as he explains the issues of our day and join the fight to bring values and morality back. Let's join Tom now as he shares what's important now.
And welcome inside What's Important Now. I'm Tom Sears. Thanks for being a part of our program. Before we dive in, I've got two quick reminders. First, if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, Spreaker, or any other podcasting platform, make sure you hit subscribe so you never, ever miss an episode. Super important. And if you're with us on FM radio, thank you for tuning in. But don't forget, every week we drop bonus content you'll only find on podcast platforms. The second thing is if you'd like to support this program and help us keep producing truth-filled content, and you're listening on Spreaker, and if you're not listening on Spreaker, you can go to Spreaker and be a part of our supporter club. And if you sign up for the supporter club, you'll get bonus content and exclusive updates. Just click the support link in the show notes. If you're listening by podcast, it's quick, it's simple, and it makes a huge, huge difference. Thank you. What's Important Now is a part of the AnchorPoint Media Network, where faith and leadership meet media. Now, we've been walking through a series asking what really is one of the most sobering questions that we can ask. That question, is America dying? In part one, we looked at lawlessness and moral collapse. In part two, we tackled how the family in America is under fire. In part three, our last episode, we talked about the death of civic virtue. And today, part four, we're turning to something that holds all the others together. Or it can tear them all apart. And that's leadership. When leaders rise to serve, nations will flourish. When leaders begin to collapse into selfishness and corruption, nations will decline. Again, we can look at history, Rome being a textbook case of that. And so today, we're going to find that America is treading dangerously close to the very same pattern of nations that went before us, especially Rome, the empire. So let's get into it. The collapse of leadership. Let's start by going back in time. Again, to the Roman Empire. We've spent a great deal of time talking about the parallels of the Roman Empire and America today. This first captivated my attention during my high school history class. Had a tremendous teacher. I've referenced him multiple times, Mr. Skiviot. And he began to show us this is really where the spark of interest in history started for me, because prior to that, I really didn't care. I found it boring. But this is where it really started for me, was when he did the comparison between the Roman Empire and America today. And also he did a lesson on cycles of civilizations. And I actually dedicated a podcast program to that. You can find that in our archives. But that's where it started. The Roman Empire, as I've stated many times, it did not collapse in one dramatic moment. It was not one enemy at the gate or one battlefield that brought defeat. Rome crumbled from the inside. And you can look at it historically and find that one of the biggest reasons that happened was because leadership failed. Now, in its early days, Rome thrived because leaders carried a sense of duty. Again, check with last episode of this part 3 of Is America Dying series, and we talk about civic virtue. Senators, generals, and even emperors understood that their survival depended on service, sacrifice, and keeping the trust of the people. But over time, that began to change. Leadership became about selfishness and not service. And you can look at some of the last emperors, including Nero, and instead of leading, he indulged himself. Another we can point to, Caligula, bankrupted the empire by spending too much, putting on bizarre spectacles, and just personal excess. Nero was infamous for his cruelty, and he prioritized his own pleasures while Rome literally burned. When leaders stopped serving and started using the empire as their personal playground, the decay of the empire accelerated. If you listen to the historian Edward Gibbon in The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, he put it very bluntly. He said that the greatness of Rome carried within it the seeds of its own destruction. Leaders, instead of holding the empire together, became corrupt, weak, and obsessed with power. I want to say that again. He said that Rome fell because the greatness of Rome actually carried within it the seeds of its own destruction. That's crazy. And the leaders became corrupt, and they became weak, and they became obsessed with power. When a person finds themselves in that place, they are unwilling to listen. And if you look to America today, unfortunately, we see a nation where one side refuses to listen to the other, and now divisive and even deadly rhetoric is at the forefront in our country. Now, if you go back to America's founding, our nation was built on a radical idea that leadership is a trust, not a throne. If you study George Washington, you find that history tells us he could have been king. As a matter of fact, the people wanted to crown him king, but he refused. And instead, he stepped down after 2 terms, and he set a precedent of restraint. It's shaky today, but George Washington set a precedent of restraint. Ladies and gentlemen, that is servant leadership. He put the republic above himself. John Adams, he once wrote that our Constitution was made only for a moral and a religious people, and he went on to add that it was wholly inadequate to the governance of any other. He knew, ladies and gentlemen, that the system depended on leaders of character, because without virtue, he understood that freedom itself was unmanageable. Now look around today. Do you see Washington's humility in our leaders? Or do we see more of Rome's decadence? Politicians spend more time raising money than solving problems. Leaders, they will chase sound bites instead of solutions. And corruption investigations make more headlines today than accomplishments do. And trust in leadership at a major decline. Think about the corrupt investigations making more headlines than accomplishments. Even when someone does something well, the other side finds a reason to say that it's bad. It's unbelievable. There's no middle ground anymore. Last week when I talked about the death of civic virtue, I pointed to the 60s and 70s, the 1960s to 1970s. And what we saw in the 60s was that 3/4 of Americans said that they trusted Washington to do the right thing most of the time. But today, according to Gallup, it's down around 20%. So 2 out of every 10 citizens still trust our government. That means 8 out of 10 does not. That's not just a bad poll number. That's a crisis of confidence. And it's not limited to government. Corporate leadership often rewards executives while workers struggle. Cultural leaders, celebrities, influencers, they often shape values more than the statesmen or even pastors. And spiritual leaders, in some cases, have fallen into scandal. And of course, that only leaves people more disillusioned. So here's the bottom line. When leadership collapses, nations will follow. Rome, well, it rotted from the top down. And unless America reclaims servant leadership, we're going to do the exact same thing. There's no way around it. Leadership, real leadership, has never been about status. It's always been about responsibility. It's about sacrifice. It's about truth, even when that truth costs you something, maybe everything. And without it, ladies and gentlemen, America simply cannot survive. In a world filled with noise, AnchorPoint Media Network is here to bring you truth, clarity, and hope. We're not just another media outlet. We are where faith and leadership meet media. Listen to What's Important Now with me, Tom Sears, tackling the tough issues of our day, fighting for the soul of America, and looking at the world with a biblical lens. Or join Brianna Megan on More Than a Song, where every lyric has a story and every song carries a message deeper than the music. Step into encouragement with Faith Danielle on Be the One, a podcast challenging you to rise up and be the difference God is calling you to be. And experience the life-changing messages from New Beginnings Live, straight from our Sunday morning services to wherever you are. This is more than media, it's a movement. Subscribe today to AnchorPoint Media Network on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, because it does matter, and it is important now. AnchorPoint Media Network, where faith and leadership meet media. Hey guys, I wanted to tell you about 2 books that I've written that come straight from the heart. The first is Into the Deep, Pursuing Your Purpose by Pursuing Intimacy with God. It's about leaving the shallow waters of faith and diving into a life of true purpose and closeness with Him. This book has been a multi-year project. Started it about 5 years ago, worked on it from time to time, but this past summer was able to step away and really put everything together. The second book is While It Is Day, Living with the Eternal Urgency. And in it, I share the importance of living every moment like it matters for eternity, because time is short. The foundation of that book is a sermon that I had preached not that long ago from John chapter 9, verse 4. Both books are available right now on Amazon. Just search Into the Deep or While It Is Day by Tom Sears, and I believe you'll be encouraged and challenged to go deeper with God. And welcome back inside what's important now. Let's go ahead and bring this home to America today. If Rome decayed because leaders became selfish and corrupt, what about us? What does it mean for America? Are we facing this same collapse? Remember, the question we're trying to answer in this now part 4 of Is the America Dying series is, are we dying? Well, if we start with politics, Gallup has tracked public trust. As I said before the break, Gallup has looked into public trust for decades. In the 1960s, you had nearly 75% of Americans that trusted their government. And today it's around 20%, meaning that 80% of Americans do not trust the government. It's crazy. It's not just apathy. It's cynicism. Approval ratings for Congress often sink below 20%. Think about the investigations, the partisan bickering, the government shutdowns. This is what is dominating our headlines, and it's happening far more than the headlines putting on display real solutions. In many ways, people could argue that leadership has been replaced by theater. Sound bites, social media posts. It matters more today than substance does. And when politicians are more interested in winning the next election than serving the people, there's no way around it. The republic suffers. And it's not just Washington. It's corporate leadership. We've seen CEOs walk away with multi-million-dollar bonuses while workers get laid off. Or their wage cannot keep up with the cost of inflation. The wealth gap between executives and employees is wider than at almost any point in American history. And instead of servant leadership, much of corporate America models self-enrichment. What about cultural leadership? Once upon a time, moral voices, preachers, statesmen, even authors helped shape the values of a nation. But today, that's celebrities and influencers. They have more power over public opinion than those who lead with principle. We have TikTok challenges, Hollywood award shows, and these things are commanding the attention of the community more than the leaders of the community, who in many cases are serving right there on the front lines. Unfortunately, today, we live in a time where culture follows the loudest voices. And it's not necessarily the wisest voices. And then we have to be honest about spiritual leadership. The church is supposed to be the light in the darkness. But you know as well as I do, scandals have dimmed that light. We've seen pastors fall into financial corruption or moral failure. It seems to be happening more. We know that when ministries chase fame instead of faith, people lose trust. So instead of pointing to Christ, too often the headlines point to failure, and that hurts. And it hurts not just the church. And this is what church leaders and churchgoers need to understand. It actually impacts the moral fabric of the entire society. So what we have is a vacuum. We have a nation that's hungry for leadership, leaders of character, not convenience. The Bible warns us in Proverbs 29:2, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when a wicked man rules, the people groan. And make no mistake, America is groaning. Not because who sits in the White House. It's a collective thing. Families feel abandoned. Workers feel ignored. Citizens feel powerless. And in many cases, people of faith feel silenced. And that's the leadership vacuum we face today. Right versus left. Red versus blue. Those who love the president, and those who do not. No middle ground, no common ground, and unfortunately, no human decency. It's just like Rome. And we're learning this hard truth. When leadership collapses, it doesn't take long for the nation to follow. So as we look at this collapse of Rome, and then we look to our own leadership vacuum, the big question is, can we recover from this? I ask this question every single program in this series. Is there a way back? And the answer, of course, is yes. It's been the same answer every single episode. But only if we discover servant leadership once again, not power-hungry leadership, not celebrity leadership, not leadership that serves self. I mean, leadership that takes responsibility, that sacrifices, and that tells the truth even when the truth hurts. And Jesus actually said it best. If you look at Matthew 20, verse 26, he said, "Whoever desires to become great among you, let him be your servant." And that is upside down compared to how the world sees leadership. But it's the only kind that lasts. And so here's where it starts. First at home, please listen. Parents, teach your children that leadership begins with service. Don't just tell them, show them. Let them see you keeping your word. Let them see you serving others. Let them see you telling the truth even when it costs you. I said this last week, I'll say it again. Make the dinner table a classroom for gratitude and responsibility. Teach them. And then we have to look to the church. The church is called to model servant leadership to a watching world, and they are watching. Pastors and leaders need to point people to Christ, not to themselves. Churches can train leaders who live with humility and with courage and with integrity, and then send them out to serve their communities, to serve in their schools, to serve at their place of employment, their workplaces. We have to do this. And then third, in the community. Leadership grows when ordinary people step up. When they join a local board, when they volunteer for a cause, when they show up when the town needs help the most or the least. I told you about Alexis de Tocqueville in the last episode. He once said that America's strength wasn't found in her government, but in her people's ability to associate, to come together, and to serve check out episode 3 of Is America Dying? That is civic virtue and its leadership in action. Now, let me be clear. Washington is not going to fix this. I hope you know that by now. Washington is not the fix. Elections are going to come and go. New senators, new representatives, new mayors, new board members, new presidents. They're going to be elected. They're going to come and they're going to go. And nothing's going to change if we don't get back to servant leadership. Washington doesn't fix it. Hollywood doesn't fix it. Big tech isn't going to fix this. Servant leadership starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with us. It's ordinary Americans deciding to live responsibly in extraordinary times. And this is where I invite you to go deeper. As you know, we have an extended podcast, a version that is new content. It's extended. It continues the discussion on whatever it is we're talking about for that particular program. And in the extended version, I'm going to break down 2 very powerful entities. And so when you hear this, you will already have access to the extended version. Is America Dying? Part 4, additional content. And here's 2 powerful realities we're going to take a look at. How America's entitlement culture directly feeds the debt crisis, a tie-in to our previous episode. Creating leaders who promise comfort instead of responsibility. And then has been a common theme in our additional content is Rome's bread and circuses. Why the bread and circuses of modern entertainment are eroding the very habits of leadership that freedom requires. And then I'm also going to build on some practical ways for families and churches so they can rebuild civic virtue, train leaders for the next generation. And it's something you do not want to miss. So make sure you are subscribing to What's Important Now on Spreaker, Apple Podcast, or Spotify, or any other podcasting platform. We are on all of them. And then grab the bonus content right after this broadcast. Whether you're listening on FM or you find it on your podcasting platform, make sure you go and find that additional content. And just like that, we are out of time. Thanks for joining me for Is America Dying? Part 4, The Collapse of Leadership. Remember, if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, Spreaker, or any podcast platform, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you're listening on FM radio, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast. Every week we drop bonus content that you're only going to find on podcast platforms. So subscribe today. Make sure you don't miss out. And let me remind you, if this program matters to you, join our supporter club on Spreaker. Your support helps us keep producing truth-filled content and making sure this message reaches even more people. But if you're not able to join right now, that's fine. You can still help us grow by subscribing, rating, and sharing this program with friends, family on social media. Okay, that's one of the biggest ways you can stand with us. America does not have to collapse, but freedom will not survive without leaders of character, leaders who put the service above themselves and truth above power. I leave with this as always: fight the good fight of faith, contend for the faith. There is a cause, it does matter, and it is important now. Make sure, again, find us on our podcasting platforms. There will be additional content available to you by the time you hear this, so make sure you check it out. Until next time, God bless you. Take care.